Thanks for checking out my micro drawings channel here. I'm starting with a Copic multi-liner 0.03, a quarter, and a pencil for reference of scale. And it's going to be Charlie Brown all tangled up in the tree, the kite hanging on one side of him, the string from the kite on the other side. So as usual, I start with facial features. In this case, I started with his little nose, added his eyes, and then there I'm rounding out his head a little bit. Pretty much a round head on good old Charlie Brown here. So got that ear, the whole ear showing, and then on the left side just a little bit of his ear. And there's a squiggle of hair that shows that the pencil eraser covers up his head there. And I'm working upward in the picture but downward on his body, and that I'm putting the neck on, the collar from his shirt, and then continuing to work in that case on his hands and his, the sleeve of his shirt. There's the bottom of his shirt coming up the other side, using his head as an anchor. Again, using a Copic multi-liner 0.03 black pen. And the thing I really like about it is that it doesn't bleed or smear when I'm using the Copic sketch markers for color against it. The Copic sketch markers themselves are alcohol based. They do blend together. For this and most of the cartoon or comic micro drawings I don't really do much for blending. And some of the more realistic micro drawings I do, like Northern Pike I did a few days ago, that I blend the colors. The Fortnite characters I draw, the different skins, I blend the colors on those as well. So there, added the outline of the tree. There I'm adding the kite string that's pinning Charlie Brown to the tree, and just adding some rough detail lines or the illusion of bark there. There I'm adding some blades of grass at the base of the tree. There I'm adding some rough leaves in there. There's a little branch, but then hanging from the tree, I will be adding the string. There's the ball of string on one side of him with some motion lines. It's, swinging there a little bit. And on the other side, I'm drawing down the kite string to the kite itself. Poor Charlie Brown, he can never win, of course. Lucy always yanks the football away from him. The tree always eats his kite. But that's the way it goes. So here I'm adding the details to the kite. A couple touches on the blades of grass. Then here's a quarter for reference again. Ends up being a little bit larger drawing, but that's because we've got the scene in there of the kite, the grass, the tree trunk, the tree leaves. So again, though, the quarter covers it up. And then I'm starting to lay the color in there. I'm using Copic sketch markers. They have two ends. One's more of a broad chisel point, and the other's a fine tip. And I'm just barely touching the paper. It bleeds in a little bit. Of course, if I would leave it there touching for a while, it would just bleed and spread out. So I'm just touching it lightly, putting the red on the kite in there. And then what you don't see is off to the side, I've got another piece of paper that I try some colors on. And I was debating at this point between two of the yellows. I went with a little lighter yellow. The other one was a little more gold in it. So here I'm putting in his Charlie Brown shirt. I'll add his little socks. And then I'll use that same yellow on the kite here as well. So again, just typing that, or pushing it real tight to the line, but sometimes leaving a little room for bleeding. Rotating the paper so I can push that fine tip right up to where I want it to go. Pencil for scale. You can see it covers up the whole trunk of the tree and Charlie Brown tied up there. Here I'm just adding a yellow-green for the grass. Just establish a little bit more of a scene. Quarter for reference again. And again, you can get kind of a feel for how small the drawing is. If you take a quarter out from your pocket and just think about that, this whole drawing fits inside of that. All right, so they're continuing to work with the marker and adding the skin tone. It's a cotton pearl. And again, rotating it so I can work right up to the line. There's the quarter again for reference. And adding the green leaves in there. Use a little bit darker green for the leaves versus the grass. And kind of eyeing things up again. Again, thanks for checking out the channel. Please subscribe and share if you haven't. That was a cool shadow gray, or a cool gray number 3 for the kite string roll. There's the quarter for reference again. So I don't have much left. Pretty much just the brown of his shoes and the brown of the tree trunk. I used 2 different shades of browns. They're basically the same color, but I wanted the shoes a little bit lighter. And then off to the side, I'm trying out the brown, different colors that I wanted to use. Finally made a decision. Quarter for the scale again. And the brown I started to use here, and this took a little longer than I thought because, you know, basically I have to work around Charlie Brown the whole way. And this brown, I don't know what the deal is, but it was really full of ink. Like the ink was starting to bead up or form a droplet. I don't know if you can see that in the video. Probably not, because you can't see the bottom side of it. But it was going to drop onto the paper. So I had to pull it off to the side, kind of wipe it down on the scratch piece of paper, and then go again. But it was like totally saturating, kind of oozing. So I didn't want it to drop on the picture. It would have ruined the whole thing. So there, I'm off to the side, kind of wiping it off, and then I come back and work for just a little bit, and it's ready to drip again. So I don't know what the deal is. I'll have to research that a little bit, find out what's going on, see if there's a way. It's, you know, almost like a leaky faucet, just kind of building up and draining. So again, they're working with the brown, working up to the grass, all around Charlie Brown without trying to bleed into anything. I do have it's called a Colorless Blender. So if I do go outside of the black lines a little bit onto the white, I can touch it with that, and that kind of dissolves the color. In this case, the brown had bled over a little bit on Charlie Brown's face. So there I used the blender to blend it in a little bit with that cotton pearl, the skin tone color. Turned out okay, I think. There's again the quarter for reference to show the scale, how small the drawing is. And then lastly, adding the date, July 14th, 2020. Thanks again for checking out the channel and for checking out the drawing.